Welcome back to the Magnolia Shine podcast. It is College Wednesday, and we got a lot of good college football to talk about. I'm your host, Trellis Williams, alongside the one and only Blake Levine. And listen, this is a big week, and we're going to talk a little Ole Miss. We're going to talk a little Mississippi State. Both those teams have big games coming up. And Blake, we got some big college football this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is interesting for Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Jackson State, Southern Miss. All of a sudden, Southern Miss has played themselves into people really think they could be playing for a conference title. Ole Miss is
Yep.
tied for first in their conference. Jeff Levy is still looking for his first conference win, going out to Florida. And then Jackson State, like we always say, they just keep on winning.
They do, and wow, what a finish they had there against Alabama State at home. That was a great finish there. But Ole Miss taking on Georgia. Okay, that's blockbuster matchup. All right, you're talking about two teams. Ole Miss 6-0, Georgia 5-1 with their one loss being against Alabama. They're hosting this game against Ole Miss. Last year, of course, the Rebels beat Georgia. This game will be a prime time ball game. Blake, what is your take on Ole Miss and Georgia, the 2025 edition?
Well, first off, I do think Georgia's going to win this game. They are in a situation, at least for Georgia, where another conference loss, one takes them out of the conference championship because, I don't see a two-loss team getting into the conference championship game, especially
No.
when you have teams like Texas A&M and how they look, and Ole Miss would then be undefeated with wins over LSU and Georgia, and that's going to be tough because you can't catch them in the tiebreaker because you lost to them. So for Georgia, and, I hate saying this because these games mean everything to everyone, but this game just means a little bit more to Georgia, in my opinion, in the sense of keeping their season intact. Because, again, they also lose. Now they have two losses. And now they're flirting with not even making the college football playoff. Ole Miss loses a game at Georgia, and they don't fall out of the top 10, I don't think. I think they would still be
I don't
9
think so
or
either.
10, depending on how they lost, right? I mean, they go and they lose by 40. We're having a different discussion here. But, they keep it close. They play a good game. They lose. Okay. They're 3-1. They still got the win against LSU. They're still have a good record, only one loss, and everything in front of them. And they still have Oklahoma and others to play with down in the season. So I think Georgia wins by 3. I think it's a close game. Georgia is favored by almost a touchdown when it opened up his line. It might have been over a touchdown. So, the betting odds think that that's the case. So I'm going to roll with them, but not covering that spread and winning by 3.
Yes, and I got Georgia winning as well. I just think I know Ole Miss fans won't like this as much, but I just don't think Ole Miss has played a team of that caliber. They have not, and this will be their first time, and it'll be on the road. Right now, Ole Miss is a 3-0 team in the SEC, 6-0 overall. Their 3 wins: Kentucky, Arkansas, both winless in the SEC, and then a win over LSU, which a lot of questions about LSU moving forward. And they're able to beat them, but we'll have to see. I think this will be a big test for Ole Miss. See what kind of team this Ole Miss Rebels team is. Last week they
Wait,
kind of messed
time.
around, nearly lost to Washington State.
No, time out. No, wait, I didn't call it.
You're just clapping. You're just
No, I
clapping,
was
right?
just clap. I know. I'm sorry. I was just clapping because I really enjoyed what you were saying there. And even though I'm yelling timeout and going timeout, what were your thoughts on that? Yeah. Well,
Wait,
yeah, yeah. What were your thoughts on that?
yeah.
And
So
for people
obviously,
that don't know, and for people that don't know, please set the scene for them.
well, so here's the thing. So what we're referring to is Kirby Smart in the game, last week's game for Georgia against Auburn. He ran up, and we're going to show this on the screen, but he runs up to the official calling for a timeout, obviously doing the timeout hands, and then he realizes that a timeout is not advantageous at that time. He realizes that while he's doing it. And so then when the referee turns around and calls timeout, he's like something. I think he was either saying that they're clapping. I think he was talking about the other team clapping. And he's like, hey, they're clapping. And he's like, I wasn't trying to call timeout. I'm saying they're clapping. But it's caught on video. Everybody saw it. And then after the game, he was like, no, I wasn't calling for a timeout. He misunderstood me. Listen, Blake,
Yeah,
sometimes I wonder, man, do you not realize that 20 cameras from 20 different angles saw you call timeout on that play?
but that's just I think he's almost playing with you when he says that. I mean, he
Yeah, yeah,
knows.
yeah.
He knows he's calling timeout. With regards to the refs, I don't know, right? Because the one ref seems to see him and acknowledge that it's a timeout. And
Yeah.
then Kirby straight up lies to him, and the ref goes, "Oh, you wouldn't lie to me, Kirby." I know he didn't actually say that, but you know that like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
you
yeah.
wouldn't lie to me," and goes, "No, yeah, no, he's clapping." In which case, they still get sort of a de facto timeout in a weird way. I mean, not a timeout for the clock purposes, but just the game stops, right? Because he's going and oh man, tough situation for the ref. The wrong call, sadly. I don't think that was the difference between Georgia winning or not winning. I just think Auburn's just gonna figure out a way to lose. But yeah, wrong call. I don't think makes a difference too much in what ends up happening in that game. I think Georgia, no matter what happens there in that situation, they would have won the game.
Yeah, and a very tough thing for the official to deal with because if you think from the referee's point of view, like what if he didn't call a timeout? What if he actually did misunderstand and they call the timeout and they take one of their timeouts when they're not wanting one? So
Yeah.
from their point of view, they're trying to get it right here. So I didn't view that as being something that was skewed one way or another. I just saw that he was obviously calling timeout, and then he changed his mind while he was doing it. He realized that I don't need to be calling a timeout right now, and so he tried to change it, and he saw that they called the timeout, and then he kept going forth with like I wasn't calling timeout. That was the part that's like, all right, man.
Yeah, Kirby's definitely an electric character on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously into the game and he's a really good coach. I mean, come on,
Really
two-time
good
national
coach.
champion
Yeah.
every single year. Even before he won the national championships, remember he was knocking on the door every single year. They were right there, playing in the national championship, being right around the corner, and you were like, man, at some point he's going to break through. And he did, and every single year he has a chance to win it. And last year he lost Carson Beck going into the playoffs. And although people really like Stockton, at the same time, I think he wishes he would have had Beck in the playoffs last year. So big game for Ole Miss. College game day's there for a reason.
So Mississippi State back in action this week. They're coming off a bye week. They're 4-2 on the season, 0-2 in the SEC. They take on Florida on the road. Things don't get that much easier for the Bulldogs here because the first two games were against great teams in Tennessee and Texas A&M. Tennessee was at home. You should have beat them. You had that game, and you drop it. Texas A&M on the road. They're undefeated. They're fourth ranked
They
team
look
in the
really
country.
good. I
Yeah,
just want people to know that Texas A&M team's really good. I don't think they're good enough to win a title, but man, they're really good.
they're really good. So Mississippi State hasn't called a break. Now they go to Florida against a team that might be catching their stride a little bit now. Florida
Yeah,
might
they
be
lost
back
last
doing
week.
well.
Yeah, all right. Right, they lost last week to Texas A&M, and you talk
Well,
about
yeah.
a team that right. But they beat Texas and throttled Texas. Really, I mean that game was never close.
Yes, but here's the thing with Florida. Even if they have a bad year, going to the swamp is tough. And that's what Mississippi State's going to have to do on
And
Saturday.
that defense is one of the best defenses in the country.
Yeah.
Florida's offense is the problem, which you wouldn't think with DJ Lagway. You'd think with an elite defense and a quarterback like that. And I'm still a DJ Lagway believer. So before the season, I got crushed. I said Mississippi State would go 4-8 this year with one win in conference against Arkansas. The game I picked differently was the Arizona State game preseason. I stand by where I'm at with this conference schedule. 1-7 is what they're looking at, and their one win is going to come at Arkansas or against Arkansas. I just don't know right now with Mississippi State and their offense and fluff. He looks like he looks like he's going to recover pretty quickly. I don't know if they
Which is
announced yet if he
amazing.
was.
I thought it was a
I thought he
season
was done.
ender.
Right. Me too. And they should be a little bit healthier coming off the bye, right? I
Yeah.
just think with Florida's defense on the road, if they, I think they can win if they can figure out a way to put up, 20 to 24 points, and Florida may not have that type of offense. But, there's a world where they score 10, 13 points this week, and that's going to be tough to win on the road. Florida's defense is really good. As bad as that team has looked at times, their defense can overwhelm a Texas, can win a game like that. So it'll be interesting.
No,
But I'm taking Florida.
It surely will. Yeah. So here's the thing: is that man, I don't know if my Bulldogs are gonna be able to pull this one out. Just down at the swamp,
I hate picking.
it's
I
gonna be
hate
real
picking
tough.
against. I hate picking against both Ole Miss and State in this week because I think that you talk about 6-0, 4-2. These are good. They're solid
Yeah.
football teams.
Yeah.
And yet here we are. This is what this conference looks like.
Yeah. So okay, so here's the thing. You say that you're still thinking a 1-7 SEC schedule for Mississippi State. I don't think Mississippi State's going to win this week. Gotta say, I'm thinking a 3-5 SEC game.
So
And
where are the three wins?
so I think they're beating Arkansas. I think they're getting the two major upsets, but I think they're going to get one major upset, and I don't know who it's going to be. Might be Texas.
Okay.
Might be Texas at home. That seems like one that could definitely be a big upset for Mississippi State. And then I think the Bulldogs win the Egg Bowl this year.
Okay.
That's a path. That's a path right there. Because I think this team can upset a big time team. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen them play Tennessee. Tennessee's still good. I didn't know if Tennessee was going to fall off a cliff or what.
No.
They play Alabama this week, so we'll see about that on the road. But I think Mississippi State's got that in them. But we'll see what happens here. Florida, I don't think they're going to win this game. But if they do, I'm very encouraged after that, I got to say.
Well, yeah. I mean, the path that you're talking about, the 3-5 path, is more realistic with a win at Florida than a loss at Florida.
That's true.
And then you're asking them to win to go. What would it be? How many games they had played? 3 of the 5, so they'd have to go 3-2 in their last conference games with
That's
a coach
right.
that now is with a coach that would be currently 0-11 in conference.
Yeah.
And asking them to
Which
go 3-2. You see where the math is
yeah.
right there, right? I mean, but you get your first conference win against Florida on the road. Okay, well now they got to go 2-3 in their last 5 with a game against Arkansas, and can they win one of the other 4?
Yeah, and the thing is that no matter
Arkansas is not going to be easy. As much as we're talking like they're going to beat Arkansas, it's not going to be an easy game. I mean,
no,
Arkansas's offense is good. It's good.
yeah, listen, I've been a Mississippi State fan long enough to not mark any wins in our favor. I'll tell you that much. But especially against Arkansas, I mean, like there have been years where the team's rolling, and then Arkansas is the stumbling block, So, but I'll tell you this: no matter how much better Ole Miss may be than Mississippi State, that Egg Bowl game is just a different game. That rivalry game is just a different game. So I think that's always in play. I mean, it was in play last year, man. It was in play last year.
It's always in play. Yeah, it's always. Yeah, I agree. That one's always in play. I wouldn't say that they'd be favored or picked to win, but it's always in play. I agree.
Yeah. So talk a little USM because listen, this has been an awesome story. I mean, the Southern Miss Golden Eagles 4-2 on the season. Their 2 losses were to Louisiana Tech, a loss they didn't like, but then to Mississippi State, which is a solid SEC opponent there. And so, other than that, they've been winning. They're 2-0 in conference. They play another conference game here this week. They're taking on Louisiana in Lafayette. Louisiana's 2-4, so this is a game where USM could get another win and start off 3-0 in conference after a year where they didn't win any conference games. Coach Huff's really turning this thing around, Blake.
So when you look at the betting odds, Southern Miss has been favored in 4 games and underdogs in 2. They're 4-2, and exactly the 4 games they were favored, they won. The 2 games they were underdogs, Mississippi State and oh man, why am I blanking on it? Oh man, it was
Louisiana Tech.
Right,
Louisiana Tech.
They were. No, it wasn't Louisiana Tech. No. Did they just or they?
They lost to Louisiana Tech.
Okay, and they were underdogs. They lost, so they're favored this week. I'm rolling with them, right? Because Vegas seems to have a good line on Southern Miss. They're about to move to 5-2. That would be more wins than they had the last 2 seasons combined. 4 wins the last 2 seasons combined. One in 11, and then 3-8, 3-9, and they would be 5-2. Wow. And I made a video and I thought it was absolutely ridiculous what some of the people that were either non-Southern Miss fans or just haters of the program talking about. Well, he's just playing with his Marshall players. I'm sorry, who's he supposed to play with? What do you mean? When coaches leave from schools, they tend to take kids with them. But this is just. We'll see what happens when he doesn't have the Marshall kids. Well, who recruited the Marshall kids originally?
Yeah.
That would be him. I don't understand why that's a slight at Charles Huff and how he's recruited and how he has brought kids over. I think that's a silly thing to say. Oh, well, he just has the Marshall kids. Like somehow he didn't bring the Marshall kids in originally to Marshall.
Yeah, and that's not how college sports works. I mean, if you get a coach that comes in, so when Alabama brought in Saban, Saban brought in better players than the previous coach had brought in. You know, Nick Saban did when Nick Saban was coaching the guys that the last coach had recruited, they went 6-6. And then Nick Saban got his players in there, and then they're, national championship contenders every year. I mean, college sports, is a lot of it is about recruiting, so that's not really a good argument at all.
No, and
But I'll
people
tell you,
act like Charles Huff is the only one that uses the transfer portal. Like what?
listen, man, you gotta have your coach needs to be using the transfer portal anyway. So, but yeah, no, Southern Miss has been looking good. I like that. I've always had an affinity for Southern Miss being from the Hattiesburg area, but it's good to see they take on Louisiana. I got USM winning this game. But one thing I've also liked what I've seen from the Golden Eagles is that their wins, which are over Jackson State, Appalachian, Jacksonville State, and then Georgia Southern, all these games they've won them in different ways. And this Georgia Southern game from last week, they won a close game. And but the thing is,
Yeah. I mean, they were kicking their butt for a while.
yeah. But here's the thing: even if you're disappointed that the score is close, it's good to be able to close it down and get the win. That's very important if you want to do something like win a Sun Belt championship, which is in play for Southern Miss, I would say, at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's absolutely in play. I still think that there's, a couple teams in front of them on their side that I think others would pick. But part of me thinks if they win this week, and I know this isn't like a great team that they would beat, but 3-0 with the team getting better every single week, Charles Huff winning it last year. I don't know. I might put a little money on Southern Miss to win the conference.
So USM taking on Louisiana, 4 p.m. on Saturday in Lafayette, Louisiana. And Jackson State this week looking at a bye. They do not play this week, but Jackson State looking real good. They're 5-1, and they played Alabama State last week, and it came down to the finish. They had to get one stop right at the end, and they got it done. And the Tigers keep rolling.
Yeah, so obviously when it was at the 2 yard line, I think it was the 2 yard line, and Jackson State was playing defense and it was going to be the final play. I had no doubt in my mind Jackson State was going to get that stop. That's just what they seem to do. I can't explain it. They seem to make the plays that they need to make, and then they also score late to take that lead. First off, that Alabama State quarterback's really good. I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. That kid's kicking ball, and he's playing a great defense in Jackson State, and he still puts up 30 plus. Alabama State has nothing to hang their hat on other than that they can't play for a Celebration Bowl this year. They can't play for a SWAC title this year because now they're a game behind Jackson State with the tiebreaker. So it's a de facto 2 games back. And Jackson State's not going to lose, I don't think, 2 games down the stretch, and Alabama win every single game. I mean, you're asking for a lot here. Now, it's very possible, or not very possible, it's possible. But Jackson State now controls their destiny, and if they control their destiny, I think they're going to get there.
I do as well. And how about Coach Taylor doing a great job there?
And I just don't know who. I just don't know who from the other side I would even be scared about when you're Jackson State in the conference championship, to be honest with you. I mean, their side is so much better.
Yeah. But Coach Taylor's done a great job there at Jackson State. And you're talking about it. I mean, just taking a look, just taking a step back and looking at this program. You're talking about a program that was taken over by Deion Sanders there in 2020, and obviously they were good during those years with Shador as quarterback and Travis Hunter playing. Then Coach Taylor takes over, and if you're talking about the metrics of success, they're more successful now. Would
Whoa,
you have
whoa,
ever
whoa! We'll take
thought?
this.
Would you have ever
I
thought?
look. You can clip this one out for the Facebook right here. This is gonna be your money rate right here. So you have Deion Sanders, and he currently has an NFL quarterback on the roster who some people thought should have been a first round pick. At one point, he had a defensive end linebacker in James Houston, who's leading the Dallas Cowboys in sacks. He had Travis Hunter, who was winning the Heisman Trophy a couple years later at Colorado. He had all those guys. He had NFL coaches on his staff, all kinds of stuff. He had the number one recruiting class, I think, in the FCS. And they have these great successful seasons. Right now, they ultimately lose in the Celebration Bowl. But then you have TC Taylor, and he loses all of that. Heisman Trophy. Guys that graded Shador Sanders as a first round quarterback, even though he was picked in the fifth. Either way, he's on an NFL roster. James Houston at 1 year. The guy that's leading the sacks for the Dallas Cowboys. And TC Taylor, in a matter of 2 years, replaces FBS players, NFL players, NFL coaches at an FCS school, and in 2 years has them higher than where Deion Sanders had him. How unbelievable. When you really just break down the actual math and what you look like on paper, it is dang near impossible to make that recovery at an FCS level when you lose that level of talent. It's one of the great football stories across the board. I wish the national media would talk about it more, but because Deion Sanders isn't the one doing it, the media has kind of somewhat forgotten. And I wouldn't say forgotten because they still play on TV, but no game day is going to come, even though, look, guys, this is better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, there's something to be said about the show, about the show. And listen, and here's the thing too, is that
Oh yeah, there's no show. There's no show. There's no show. It's just winning football games.
yeah, well, it's not no show. Okay. Now Jackson State, there's plenty of show there, but I'll say this though. Sometimes when you see a certain amount of success, all of a sudden the recruits are looking at Jackson State like, man, that was fun, and this does it. You don't have to have Deion Sanders for it to be like this. And I mean, listen, it reignited it. I mean, I think that program is better for that period of time, for sure.
Of course, no, of course. Because they were dwindling a little bit. I mean, look, they were getting their wins here and there, but they were not competing at that level. And Deion Sanders set a standard that TC Taylor was able to take that standard and just take a
Yeah,
little step forward.
yeah, for sure. And so now you got Jackson State. They're a really good program there in their conference and even in the FCS more broadly. So definitely Jackson State looking real good. Kind of extending to a little bit more SEC here. We got Tennessee and Alabama coming up this week. Alabama is sitting there. They're 5-1 overall, but they're 3-0 in conference. Alabama is competing for an SEC championship right now at this point in time in the season. Tennessee sitting with one conference loss, with their one loss to Georgia, and they are 5-1 as well. Blake, what's your take on this one? This is the 6:30 primetime game at Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama.
Yeah, I think Alabama, at home, this is a big one. And, I thought, on the road at Missouri was really impressive for them. I was actually at that game, funny enough.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
got to watch. I got to watch Meridian's own Daniel Hill score what would be the de facto game-winning touchdown. I think I watched Bray Hubbard also get an interception, or he did something big in that game. So I was kind of watching a lot, and then Ahmad Hardy, Lawrence County, running for Missouri, and I'm like, man, this is a whole Mississippi game against Alabama versus Missouri.
yeah.
I think Tennessee's really good. I just think Tennessee's defense has kind of faltered here, and what we thought was going to be a really good unit is just not. And I think Ty Simpson is playing the best ball of the season of arguably any quarterback. And so I think Alabama wins by a touchdown.
I have Alabama as well, probably by a similar margin. I think it'll be a competitive game. But I gotta say though, might need to be some apologies made to Coach DeBoer there at Alabama. I know that they have the Saban standard over there, but I gotta say, I think if Nick Saban was still the coach, I think they'd take more losses than they were when he was coaching. This is a different era of college football. We see it with Kirby Smart with Georgia. They're losing more games than they were just a few years ago, and it's because that like at the top level of college football, there's more parity. At the top level.
Yeah.
Not in the grand scheme of things, but at the top level, like the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, and all them, there's more parity there. Uh, so I think that they'd be losing more games anyway. But since you have a new face and a guy that's a little nicer looking than Nick Saban, it makes it look like, oh, this guy's not as serious. This guy's a really good coach.
He's a
And
really
you
good
start
coach. Yeah.
and you start the season off losing, that's not easy. Especially in college football when you can't lose too much. But they've won every game since, including a win at Georgia and then a win at Missouri last week. I'm very high on Alabama. I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. And again, Tennessee's defense has just not impressed me to the degree that I thought they were going to be.
Yeah. And so a little bit more thing to talk about. We saw Texas beat Oklahoma last week. We saw John Mateers, their quarterback. He was a Heisman candidate. He had a rough game there against Texas. We see Arch Manning. He's struggling his way through the season. But the thing is that he's doing a little bit better, and this Texas team is winning a little bit more. Do you think this Texas team can make noise again? They started off the season as the number one team in the country. They ended up being unranked. I think they popped back in the rankings. A team like that, where do you see them right now?
They're probably going to have to win out, right, to make the
Yeah,
playoffs
they
because they're
probably
not going
would.
to be in the because they're not going to be in the conference championship. So they're probably going to have to win out, and the conference looks good this year. And the bottom is
Yeah,
really
it
bad.
does.
The bottom is really bad, but you think about the middle ground, and you get teams like Florida who obviously beat Texas, and you got Missouris, you got the Tennessees, and while they may be favored in both those whatever games that they play those teams, excuse me if they don't. I'm just trying to hypothetical here. Uh, those are all tough games, and now you're asking yourself, you can't lose any of them.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
and that's a it's a tough situation with so much season left to be in. We can't lose again. Now, Notre Dame last year lost to Northern Illinois and then ripped off what was it, 12 straight wins and went to the national championship. So, if you're that type of team, you can do it. Right? I mean, Notre Dame went to the national championship after losing to Northern Illinois. And they never lost again until they played Ohio State. So yeah, I mean, if you think that they're Notre Dame 2024 material, then yeah, they can. But Arch has just not looked good.
No, well, yeah, and he's you can see some improvement there, but he's just it doesn't seem like he's doing well enough. Like he's not doing as well as Quinn Ewers was. But just think about this. Think about Quinn Ewers as quarterback last year. He had to deal with that pressure all year long, where it's like people were wanting Arch Manning out there. Little did they know that they really didn't want that. They definitely wanted Quinn Ewers. I mean, at some point in time, I feel like people just don't understand kind of that experience of actually playing, how important that actually is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, Sarkisian's a very, very smart offensive coach. He spent all last year playing a seventh round NFL quarterback over Arch. I don't think he did that because he felt like Quinn Ewers, deserved it because he was older. I think he really thought Quinn Ewers gave him the best chance to win football games.
Yeah, oh, most definitely, most definitely. Um, okay, so Blake, I want to talk to you about something else. We usually stick in the SEC, but this is a big story throughout college football. We saw James Franklin get fired from Penn State after a 3-3 start. Obviously, very disappointing for Penn State. 3-3. You lost to UCLA, who was winless. That was the start of the bad. And then you lose again to Northwestern, and so now he's out. But the thing is that he was like one of their most successful. Well, obviously they had Joe Paterno for all those years, but like his success rate the last few years was very good. And how's Penn State really going to replace that is the question. Because you always have to think about this. If I were a coach, you better replace him with something that's at that level or better. Because if you get worse, that's a bad look.
On the basis, I can't believe they did it. I would not have done it mid-season, and I would have let him finish out the year and whatever.
Yeah.
If you want to reevaluate at the end of the year, fine. To me, there's more of a story, right? Because there's no way they just fired this guy mid-season after a Final Four appearance last year and 13 wins, 13-2 or whatever it was, right? 13-3. Like, to me, there's something bigger. There's something that was happening behind the scenes, and at some point we're going to hear that story. Because if it was just fired because they were mad about a 3-game losing streak, Jim Harbaugh went 2-4 in the COVID year, 2-4, and then he went 9-4, and they made him take a pay cut and have a prove it year. Well, they weren't going to do Harbaugh dirty like that. Well, then he goes a couple years later wins the national championship. I'm surprised they didn't go to James Franklin and say, "Hey, look, you got an option here. You take a pay cut, or we're firing you." And he maybe took the okay, I'm out. So I want to know what the real story is, because it's not, it's yesterday, or on Sunday they just said, that's it. There's no way that's it. It's not as basic as that.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised by it. I knew that Penn State was struggling. I knew that their fan base was not happy with what's going on. But just think about how quickly things change. I mean, Penn State's a top 5 team. They're playing Oregon. I think it was Oregon that they were playing. That they were beating Oregon, and then Oregon
It went to overtime. Did it go to overtime?
It did. It went to overtime. That's right. It's 30-24.
I mean, right. They're an overtime win over Oregon with UCLA and Northwestern up next. They beat Oregon. They're not losing to UCLA or Northwestern if they beat Oregon.
Yeah, probably not, because oh man, I mean, you're sitting there thinking like, oh, well, you're definitely going to be 6-0 after 6 games to 3-3. Your coach is gone, man. And that's how quickly things change. Listen, that's a business. The thing about the head coaching in college football, that's a business that you sign up for that turnover. But, if you're able to get to those heights, the money's good.
$50 million buyout.
Yeah,
that's what you sign up for.
Yeah, it's not all bad in the end, So, folks, look,
great.
we appreciate you joining us here for College Wednesday on the Magnolia Shine podcast. Tomorrow will be Thursday. Obviously, Thursday comes after Wednesday, but we'll be talking high school for this upcoming week. Week 8 in high school football in the state of Mississippi. And the further we get in region play, the better it gets. So you just got to tune in tomorrow right here on the Magnolia Shine podcast. Hit the subscribe button. Also like and share and follow our Facebook, The Magnolia Shine Podcast. The one and only Blake Levine alongside myself, Trellis Williams. We're glad to be with you. We out.